This is Deacon Phillips. We didn't get our Mass recorded, so there isn't any homily from this past weekend, so I thought I would just record it right here and post it. This week's homily is on the Gospel reading, which was Mark's account of Jesus going out into the desert to fast for 40 days and to do battle with Satan. There was a popular comic book movie that came out a few years ago called The Avengers, and many people recognize it, but if you didn't see it, it's a comic book movie. And two of the characters in it are, number one, the Incredible Hulk, who is a huge, very powerful green guy with an anger management problem, but he's the good guy. And the bad guy is called Loki, and Loki is a mythical god from another planet, apparently, and he's played by this British actor who speaks with this really great contemptuous accent. And at one point, the Hulk and Loki meet, and Loki says, "Why do you keep bothering me, you simple thing? Don't you know that I am a god?" And the Incredible Hulk, in his own wonderful way, grabs Loki by the throat and slams him on the ground repeatedly, crushing him into the pavement. And as the Hulk walks away, he says to Loki, "Puny god." Now, if I were the king of the universe, and I were Jesus, and I were going out into the desert to do battle with Satan and all the evil spirits, it would end up looking a lot like that. I would have brought my divine power. I would have crushed Satan. I would have crushed the rocks beneath his corpse. I would have destroyed all of his evil minions. In Good Friday, I would have done that differently than Jesus did too. If I were in his place and those pitiful creatures whom I created were stripping me, beating me, and nailing me to a cross, I don't know exactly what I would have done, but there would have either been A, a big smoking hole in the Middle East, or B, there would have been a planet missing in our solar system, or C, I would have just rolled up the whole universe and started over again. But that's not how Jesus did it, is it? Jesus, when he is ready to leave his comfortable life with Mary and go out to be a homeless preacher, Jesus went and had himself baptized, and then he went to do battle with Satan. And when he went into battle, he went with one hand tied behind his back. He did not bring his divine power. He went with his human nature, fortified by the Holy Spirit, but still just his human nature. And on top of that, he first fasted for 40 days to weaken himself, to make himself prone to temptation so he could feel temptation as strongly as any human being has ever felt it before. Why would he do that? Why would Jesus tie one hand behind his back to do spiritual battle with Satan? I believe the answer is that Jesus didn't just come to win the victory. Jesus came to win us. And that is the difference. Jesus came to seduce us, to be our friend, to be our brother. And it's hard to do that if you're throwing lightning bolts around. There's a very simple example from our ordinary lives that maybe you would recognize. The average man is bigger and stronger than the average woman. But the average man doesn't go out and select his woman by force and drag her off. In our civilization, the man humbles himself and treats the woman with kindness and gentleness and respect and wins the woman that way. And we formalize this actually in the wedding proposal, where the man has to get down on one knee to humble himself and beg the woman to take him. Well, this is what Jesus is doing. He's not intimidating us by force and thunderbolts. Jesus is coming in humility and obedience to his Father. Because of the obedience to his Father, Jesus was able to win by losing, actually. We call this the contradiction of the cross. If you look at a a crucifix hanging in the front of our church. That crucifix is the symbol of our faith, a bloody corpse hanging on a cross. Now, this must have driven the marketing experts crazy back in the first century when Peter was setting up his church, and the church was using a crucifix, a corpse on a wooden cross, as its symbol. The marketing expert must have thought, well, why would you do that? This is a sign of humiliation and pain. Why not use Jesus' most glorious event, which is his resurrection from the dead? Why isn't that the symbol? Or why not the walking on water or the ascension into heaven? But I think Peter could have explained that the symbol of the crucifix is actually the best symbol for us because it shows not just Jesus' victory, but it shows how much he loves us and that he was willing to do that for us, to be tortured and killed. It was no great accomplishment to be tortured and killed by the Romans. Tens and maybe hundreds of thousands of people were crucified back in their day. And Jesus was just another one in a long line. But yet he didn't have to be. He chose that for us. And that's his attraction. That's why we are drawn to him, is because we know he did that for us. And he did that to seduce us, to attract us, and to be our friend. So as this Lent begins, I would challenge all of us to give up something big for Lent. Instead of giving up chocolate or pop or beer or something like that, let's give up something really big. Let's give up our will. Let's be obedient to the Father the way Jesus was. Because God knows what we need. He knows where we're at and where we need to go, and he knows how to get us there. So let's quit trying to bend God's will to ours and let him bend us to him, and let him take us where we need to go with obedience and humility and gentleness, just as Jesus did, because that's how Jesus is coming to us. He's coming on a bended knee, asking for our hand. Try to accept, in other words, what God is trying to do in your life this Lent. Thank you. This is Deacon Phillips.